Welcome to our all-day movie workshop. I'm Peter. If you're joining us for the first time, I'm going to be the host today. And we're going to start with the movie with David. And just to let you know how the day will flow, we'll have a 10-minute break after the movie. Then we'll have breakout rooms where you can share any emotions or anything that came up for you. And then we're going to have a 45-minute break, and then I'll be holding the closing session today. So I'm going to pass it over to you now, David.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Happy to see your smiling faces again. We're here to just feel the joy in our hearts and all the love and be blessed and send our blessings out to the whole universe, because our mind contains the whole universe, so we can easily send our blessings to the whole universe. You know, when you're happy, the whole universe is happy because it's just one mind. When you're joyful, the whole universe is joyful. When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. That's right, because it's your mind. If you're smiling, everyone in the cosmos is smiling, because we are the same one. We are connected. We are releasing the trick that we're separate. So, wow, it's beautiful. Every time you vote on these themes, I just have so much fun. And sometimes Jesus gets me going in the beginning of the week, looking at the themes and showing me things. And this is the case with our movie today. As soon as we had our themes and the polls were out, then Jesus was like, he had me on Amazon and YouTube finding, I thought, it's a movie I never heard of before. And after all these huge blockbuster movies I'm showing you, huge Hollywood movies with production cost in the millions and millions of dollars, I found out that the movie I'm showing you today has a total production cost of $85,000. So we could pull together, we could make a movie like this, you know. It's just all heart. It's just all lesson. It's our lesson for all of us, but it's so beautiful in all of its simplicity. It's a masterpiece of $85,000 with the touch of Christ put on it to bring home the love in our hearts and the love of God. So the name of the movie today is called A Time for Heaven. It's even got heaven in the title, A Time for Heaven. When I think of A Time for Heaven, I think of the holy instant. I think of the present moment. All the great sages and mystics have always said, just live in the present moment and you're there. That's it. There's nothing more to do than live in the present. So our time for heaven is right now, and we're sharing it right now. This is our time for heaven. I think the movie was made around 2017. So I had fun even looking into who made this movie, and they've made a lot of other very loving movies, and they're all into God and Christ and spiritual awakening. So I said, I found a lot of new friends with this movie. So the polls this week, the themes that you voted on, coming in number one in the vote was recognizing it's always my own lesson. That's the number one vote getter. It's always my own lesson. And of course, I'm not talking about your personality self. It's not your personality self's own lesson, but it's our mind. It's our mind. We are the same one. We share, of course, we have the same lesson since we share the same mind. And that's the simplicity of salvation, is that it's not about people getting their lessons, or it's not about enough people getting the lessons, or having like the 100th monkey or some kind of threshold where enough of the collective consciousness gets the lesson, so the rest get the lesson too. No, it's really our own mind's lesson that when we awaken, everyone wakes up with us. It's not something that has to be occurring in time or over time. It's just a momentary recognition of who you are and seeing what's real and what's not. That is the discernment. That's the final lesson of the atonement, accepting the correction. So number one, by far this week, recognizing it's always my own lesson. Doesn't that sound good? Even I'll say it again. It's always my own lesson. Isn't that fun? That's so beautiful. And coming in, number two is focusing only on the truth in my brother. So that's talk about seeing the Christ in your brother and your sister, focusing on only the truth in my brother, not focusing on mistakes, not focusing on errors, not focusing on behaviors, focusing only on the truth in my brother. That is so beautiful because that's what true empathy is about, staying in your heart with what's real and true. And eventually that's how you transcend error, is you will not tolerate seeing it anymore. Jesus does say in the Course, do not see error. He actually, at one point in his teachings, he italicizes those 4 words, do not see error. And you can tell when you do the workbook lessons, when you get to those lessons that start repeating, my mind holds only what I think with God. I am as God created me. He likes to repeat these lessons. My mind holds only what I think with God. I am as God created me. He's saying, keep your eye on the prize here. Keep your focus on the light. Don't go fishing around in error, because you're not going to be happy if you go fishing for errors. Be a light finder and a light being. Don't be a fault finder. And don't be a mistake finder. You're not trying to categorize mistakes here. You're trying to overlook them. The Holy Spirit doesn't see mistakes. So when we're seeing mistakes in ourselves as a person or anybody else, we're looking through the ego's filter, because the ego is a fault finder. It made the world to project the fault out to the world. Okay, coming in number 3 with 62 votes. Relaxing into present moment guidance. Wow, delicious. Relaxing into present moment's guidance. That keeps it simple. What's my guidance right now? It can't get any simpler than that. I don't have to analyze the error to decide what I'm going to do. I don't have to look into the past and the darkened glass Corinthians talks about in the Bible. I don't have to look back into that crystal ball and try to pull some meaning from the crystal ball in order to be guided. I just need to be tuned into present moment guidance. And the last one is healing relationships through a giving state of mind with 61 votes. That's beautiful. A giving state of mind. I had somebody write to me on Facebook recently, and they said, what do you mean true giving? What does that even mean? So I thought, someone's asking me what true giving means. I said, I think I've spoken about this in the last 36 years. So I did a search on YouTube for David Hoffmeister true giving, and boom, 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 boom. There's all these videos. And I said, oh, here's the search. Try this out. I said, I'm pretty sure I talked about this. Giving as God gives. Giving without expectations. Just like a flower gives its fragrance and lets the wind carry it wherever the wind wants to carry it without telling the wind where to send the fragrance, God gives love, light, happiness, joy, eternity as a gift with no expectations. It's a gift for everything and everyone. It's a gift without end. It's a gift without beginning. It's just an ever ever occurring fountain of love and light that just extends and extends and extends. It just radiates and radiates and radiates. So that's what we're trying to do here with healing relationships through a giving state of mind. So in the movie today, A Time for Heaven, the main character, her name is Julie Collins, and she's a nurse, an RN. She's a registered nurse living in Phoenix, Arizona in the United States. And Julie, the other thing I like about this movie, not only was it made for a total budget of $85,000, but it's based on a true story, so to speak. This happened. No wonder you can make such a great movie. All you do is you put your money behind a story that happened, and we all can recognize a movie. Sometimes when you're watching it, you're going, wow, imagine a movie like this. And Jesus is like, yeah, this happened. So it wasn't difficult to write the script because it happened. And they made a movie for $85,000. So it's really beautiful that way. Julie Collins is the main character. So we basically are going to follow her in her lessons that she experienced. She's a nurse. She's a very loving nurse. She's a very kind nurse. And while she practices with stethoscopes and things that nurses use, she specializes really in working with people who are dying. And I can certainly relate to that because when I was in my 20s, one time I was just guided by spirit to sign up to become a hospice volunteer. So I knew what I was getting myself into. I thought, wow, if I become trained, I had to train for, I don't know, I think it was like 8 weeks to be a hospice volunteer. And then they send you right into the hospitals, the nursing homes, the hospice facilities, where people on their final days or hours of living in this world. And wow, for me, it was great because I was practicing the course, and this was one of the guidances that I got, was I was to train to be a hospice volunteer. And there was healings. There was a healing that occurred with a fellow minister who was also a hospice volunteer, who had a powerful encounter with him over lunch at a Wendy's. And he had been diagnosed with himself with a terminal illness, and he was volunteering to be with the terminally ill, and he went through a major healing. His cancer disappeared in the joining with me at Wendy's. I told him, I just asked him if there was somebody that he had not forgiven, and he looked at me with big wide eyes, and he said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Is there somebody you're not speaking to that you loved very dearly?" And he's like, "That's my sister." And I said, "Well, you need to make contact with your sister, and you need to forgive her." And that precipitated his healing, where he was freed completely. The symptoms all went away that were quite serious. And then he just joined me, and we had a great time there at hospice, practicing with everyone. But basically, it was an opportunity to extend love, to extend the truth, to extend love and light, even in the seeming situation where people were choosing to spend their last hours on their last days on earth. And in this movie, Julie Collins, the registered nurse, she's kind of specializes not only in being with people and helping them connect with God and connect with the spirit during their final days on earth, but she also specializes in what people call challenging and difficult situations. People that are angry, people that are bitter, people that are rude and arrogant and seem to have a lot of anger and a lot of hurt built up, and they're taking their final breaths on earth. And she's very good at connecting with them and letting the Spirit pour through her in exactly what to say and what to do in these kind of cases. So I think this is a good example of a miracle worker. This is a Christian woman who basically is very prayerful and devotion to Jesus, and she's identified very much as a Christian, and she sees that these encounters that she's having in her nursing role are very important. Why is this all important to us? Well, even when I'm using words like terminal illness, Jesus is telling us only the mind can be sick, and he's saying that illness is a concept that the ego made up, just like death is a concept the ego made up, just like birth is a concept the ego made up. So to me, this is again taking two terms, terminal and illness, and is trying to give this kind of grave, dark, heavy feeling to the term illness, as if, illness could be terminal. Illness is, I think, fleeting is a better word than terminal, because it's fleeting in your mind. You can try to hold on to the ego and try to hold on to illness, but God's will win out. Love always wins. This little fleeting idea of illness doesn't have a chance against eternal love. It's just a little blip on the screen. It's not so heavy and dark, because terminal illness is associated with death. And as long as the mind believes in the ego, then it believes that death has a reality. And everyone who believes in the ego believes in death. So this movie is helping us to release the belief in death. That's our lesson. Accepting the correction, the atonement from the Holy Spirit, and releasing the belief in death. Another thing that comes to me is this idea that somehow, we feel that things of this world and relationships of this world are extremely important. They are important for forgiveness. They are important for releasing the ego, but they don't have any importance in and of themselves. Meaning that if we take relationships, we'll say interpersonal relationships, if you take it down to the core of interpersonal and the personal, that comes back to bodies. And to the ego, there's a lot of concepts and stories tied into the body, because the body seems to be born. It has a place of birth. It has a date of birth. It has a location and a context. It's born to other bodies. Although now with test tube babies and different types of things, we can say that it still involves duality. It still involves sperm and eggs. It still involves cells breaking apart and replicating. It's still biological. But ultimately, this identity of time and space, this self-concept, is very much tied into the body. And two of the concepts that are tied into the body are birth and death. That's why in most cultures, there's a big celebration around birthdays. In fact, when I sign into Facebook, it has a list. Here are your friends' birthdays for today. Yeah, so it's emphasizing the date that the body was born. And we also have a thing called obituaries, which is basically an emphasis on death, a date that the body has died. The other bodies that the body has left behind, the constellation of bodies that are mourning the dead body. There's a lot of concepts tied into birth and death. And that's because the ego invented birth and the ego invented death. And it may tell you you can celebrate one and you can mourn the other, but it doesn't really care as long as you believe in the concepts. Because I always say every day to me is Easter, every day is Christmas, because we're all really the same one. Everyone is the Christ. Everyone is eternal life. Behind the veil of form is eternity. So this idea that the identification with the body, the identification with the birth and the story around the birth, or death and the story around the death, is all part of a self-concept or a veil that was made by the ego to blind you from the truth, to keep you from knowing who you are. So the beautiful part of it all is once you start to see that all feelings of abandonment and all feelings of rejection all have to do with the story of the body, and that it's a projection of the belief in abandonment with God. It's a projection of the belief in abandonment and with God. All the way comes back to God, the authority problem, the belief that I can create myself as I want to be instead of being an eternal creation of a loving God. So all of the projection of time and space, including birth and death, is all just a projection of the belief that I can be something that I'm not, that I can be physical instead of spiritual. I'm a spiritual being, but if I believe in the ego is like, no, forget that. You are a time-space being, and there's a lot of intricacies to this story. And all of these things come back to the feelings of abandonment and rejection. So the main character today is Julie, the nurse, and she's taking us all on a ride with her as she is going to get in touch with a lot of deep unconscious feelings of abandonment and rejection that are underneath the surface. Because they're unconscious, they're not in awareness. And that's why when we move through time and space, what we perceive as the world, the only purpose of the world is to bring the unconscious up so you can release it. And we're going to see that from Julie today. Her name is Julie Collins. And it's pretty close to a singer that I really enjoy. Has anybody ever heard of the singer Judy Collins? Has a beautiful voice, and she's quite famous for a song called Both Sides Now. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all. Thank you, Judy. Judy Collins gives us the song of the day, and Julie Collins is the actress, is the person, the main character in our movie today, who's going to help us go beyond birth and death, who's going to help us forgive the things that we have put faith in that have brought us misery, that have brought us hurt and sadness and heartbreak. And I know I've lived with a number of you, and we've lived together, we've shared together, and basically we can say that the upsets that come up seem to be related to personal situations, personal grievances, things that we wish were different, things that we regret, things that we wish we could take back. All these kind of hypothetical things are all the projection of guilt, as if it has something to do with the world of form, when it's just an ego belief that we're clinging to. The ego is the grievance. The ego is the belief that there is no God. That's a grievance. If you've got a belief in your mind that there is no God, and if God is reality, then the belief in the ego is the belief that there is no eternal reality. it's just a belief in form. It's a substitute. It's a substitute for eternal life. So in this movie, we're going to see that Julie is taking care of her patients, and then she's going to be assigned a patient called Ronald. And Ron is going to be her forgiveness opportunity. Just like we all have a special function in terms of forgiveness, this will be her special function of letting go of everything that she's known and believed about Ron. And there's other characters in the movie as well, but they're all part of the supporting cast of her assignment. And all of us are given an assignment, which is called a special function, which is our opportunity to put forgiveness into full practice. Whatever we believe somebody's done wrong to us, whatever we believe anybody has mistreated us, we are given opportunities to see that we were completely mistaken about everything, not about most things. We will get a form that will become coming to our awareness, into our perception, that is the perfect one that is given to us to let go of all belief and all meaning in. And we seem to have to go through a process of uncovering all that we believe should have happened, all that we were entitled to that we didn't receive, all the little mistreatments that we believed were external to our mind are brought to us in a form to realize, oh my gosh, it was my mind's mistake. It was never the person. It was my mind's misperception of the entire universe that was the grievance, not the person's. But we have to, the Spirit works with us on what we believe. So we know that it seems to be a lot of healing that happens in interpersonal relationships. And the more special the people seem to us, the better opportunities for releasing the grievance. If you're indifferent about people, then you still have to deal with the grievance, but you will deal with it in something that seems to be very specific, something that seems to be specific. And then you realize it's not what you thought. It's not what you thought it was. And then you have this great aha moment. Oh my gosh, God was right about me and I wasn't. Wow, that was a tough one. I was trying to make an identity that God didn't create. Woo, that's a tough one. But to relax into being as a perfect creation of God, that's got to be the most easy, relieving recognition there could ever be. So there's some great characters in this movie. Basically, relationship is between Julie, the caregiver, the registered nurse, and Ron. And then as the script seems to unfold, you can just feel the miracles happening as everything is orchestrated in all of time and space to bring about laughter, to bring about peace, to bring about love and harmony. Everything is working together just for us to realize that love is real, and that error cannot be true. The error has to be false. And that's what our final recognition is that the truth is true and only the truth is true. Some of you read that in the course. The first time I read that in the workbook, the truth is true and only the truth is true, I had to stop and I was thinking, holy Jesus, Jesus, are you trying to be funny here? And he's like, no, I'm very sincere. The truth is true and only the truth is true. I mean it. I actually mean it. And you just have to accept it. That's all. Just join me in accepting this truth. So sit back, enjoy the movie today. It's a beautiful, simple movie. Don't be waiting for huge special effects. Don't be, that cost millions of dollars. Don't be waiting for, some kind of big choir to start singing. Maybe the angels will be singing as you're watching it today, and you'll feel that. But this is a very simple movie that just takes you in to the heart of God. And we're all going there together. We're all taking that journey together. Okay. See you soon. I'll pop in during the movie.